공지사항 알려드립니다. 2021 여름 SAT 프로그램을 성황리에 마치고 새로운 2021 가을 SAT 프로그램이 다가오는 10월 9일부터 시작합니다. 이 프로그램은 12월 4일 SAT 시험을 목표로 둔 학생들을 위한 프로그램이라는 점 미리 알려드립니다. 학생들의 스케줄을 최대한 고려하여 수업은 매주 토요일, 일요일로 진행되며 매주 수요일에는 수업 이외로 학생들이 자유롭게 질문할 수 있는 수학, 영어 각각 2시간의 오피스 아워가 제공됩니다. 자세한 스케줄은 웹사이트 snap-sat.com을 통해 확인하실 수 있습니다. 혹여 봉사활동이나 특별활동 혹은 다른 개인적인 사정으로 인해 수업에 불참하게 되더라도 매번 수업의 녹화본이 메이크업 링크로 학생들에게 제공되기 때문에 학생 본인이 편리한 시간에 놓친 수업을 들을 수 있습니다. 해서 시간대가 맞지 않아 수업을 듣지 못하거나 혹은 주말에 타이트하게 수업을 하는 것이 부담이 되는 학생들 역시 본인의 페이스에 맞게 수업에 참여할 수 있습니다. 6주 혹은 8주 프로그램을 등록하실 수 있으며 6주와 8주의 유일한 차이점은 2주분의 수업을 더 듣느냐 마느냐의 차이일 뿐 수업 내용 등은 전체적으로 동일하다는 점 알려드립니다. 수학 부분은 제가 직접 수업을 진행하고 영어 부분은 저희 강사진 중 한 명인 레이 킴 선생님께서 도맡아 수업을 진행해 주십니다. 레이 선생님에 대한 간략한 소개 및 두 강사들의 샘플 강의 영상 링크들을 아래 설명란에 달아드릴 것이니 등록을 하시기 전에 꼭 자녀분과 함께 시청해 보시기 바랍니다. 학부모님들의 관심과 성원에 감사드리며 믿고 맡겨주시는 만큼 저와 레이 선생님 모두 차질 없이 준비할 수 있도록 최선을 다하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
I applied to Yale, Vassar, Brown, and a couple others, but I actually applied to Brown early decision and got in early decision and then just went. And so I don't even know what other schools I could have possibly attended. The reason primarily I applied to Brown was primarily the open curriculum, A, and then B, it's access to RISD classes. The open curriculum I've experienced and it's fantastic. I'm an artist. I want to make movies. So I wasn't really coming here to take any sort of specific major. I really primarily wanted to get a, well-rounded approach to an education that encompasses lots of various interesting topics because if you want to write a movie, for example, you don't need to just know how to write. You need to have something worth writing about, right? A holistic world knowledge. And I think Brown is excellent for that because you can really as long as you take a mix of decent classes, you're going to fulfill your course requirements almost automatically. And you can really just focus on taking what's interesting to you. That has upsides and downsides, for sure. Some people struggle with it because there's no direction, right? It's not a very regimented school. It's very much the ball's in your court. Which, sometimes is a struggle for me. I have ADHD, so that's one thing. But I think ultimately it's a fantastic thing. School is really about learning, and Brown is really emphasizing that. Even though it's an Ivy League, it's really, really a self-directed, open-ended liberal arts experience. My actual professors are fantastic. I have small classes. Unless you're in STEM, you're going to have pretty small classes. If you're in comp sci or some math classes, those get huge. But other than that, you can get, I got lots of 20, 30-person classes, 10-person classes. So that's really fantastic. I would say Providence is really small. It's a city, but it's a really small city. It's about, I can walk 20 minutes and get to the state capitol, or the Capitol building, I should say. So it's not, massive. You can walk the whole city pretty easily. It is a city, but don't think you're going to apply to like a city school like NYU when you're applying. Access to RISD, right? That's part of the other reason I applied, and that was, especially for me because I want to take, art, animation, drawing, sculpting, photography, film and video classes, stuff in that line to help me with directing and writing. And that is a little lacking. I think that was definitely not meeting my expectations. You can do it, but you have to be really tenacious and really aggressive to get into those classes. So if you're trying to get into a popular RISD class, you have to be, talking to professors, trying to force your way in, like, semesters in advance. And, they don't make it easy for you to just go talk to a professor. I personally have had to, like, wait outside buildings for when professors are done with their class, like, figure out, and it's not online, figure out a matrix of when their meetings are from, going to talk to people at the front desk and all this stuff. So it was a whole complicated process of finding people to convince them to let me into their classes. And part of why I can do that is I already have a portfolio. So if you don't, it's even tougher, I would assume. And I think for me, it was primarily the quality of the classes, the quality of the education, which I think is definitely fantastic. And it's beyond belief at Brown. I've had some fantastic professors. My reasoning, that's what I wanted to do. I don't need a degree to work in film. They don't really care about you getting a degree at all. And I didn't want to, go somewhere for a campus or the food or whatever, superficial stuff. So it really just came down to what will I think has an interesting selection of classes that I have access to, so that I can enrich myself, because that's really what I'm here for, is enrich myself, become more erudite, more academic. What is the important stuff to put in your application? I think this is going to suck to hear, but like all of it's important. I think especially if you're applying to, a top tier school like Brown or any Ivy League, or even, one tier below of like the NYUs and Vassar and those types of more elite institutions. You really need to, you really can't just be good at one thing, You need to be simultaneously pointy and rounded, have a fantastic SAT score, have a great SAT score. And I think a lot of people are thinking, well, the tests are test optional. But if they're test optional, they're going to assume you had a poor SAT score, and they're going to treat you less seriously. So you need that great score to get in the door, and that'll get you in the door. But there's, thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have great SAT scores. So from there, you need to distinguish yourself in other ways. You need the score, and then a pitch of like, you need the score in the classes, good grades, so they take you seriously. And then you need something that's unique and interesting and concrete about yourself that says, hey, this is me, take me seriously, out of all the other kids who got, 15 whatever on the SAT. So for my case, I had film. I had a portfolio, stop motion animated films. I had, won awards at festivals. I showed that. I also threw down, I'm a miniatures wargamer. That's a fun detail, that always helps give you, like a idea of who you are as a person. I went in and talked to the, head of admissions for my area, which is, LA, in person. I don't know how plausible that is with the pandemic, but it's a really, really good idea, because I think it's very easy to just not treat someone seriously or not give them the time of day, right? Because they're rushing through hundreds of papers. If they're not a real person to you, and putting a name to a face, and even just having said a couple words to a real person is makes a big impact, I think, subconsciously on the admissions officer. Yeah, and finally for the essay, I think the essay is also important. It's good to focus on personal growth and reveal something specific about your personality. I think a lot of people direct their essays outwards, if that makes sense. So they'll say like, I realize that the world is, messed up for XYZ reason, or that we need to change the way we think about the climate, or foreign policy, or, foreign aid or something, whatever is relevant to your interests. But I think really you should focus your essay on personal characteristics. And even if you open up someone's worldview, it's just wasted time, because you didn't tell them anything about you, and their job is to admit you. Also, don't be afraid to brag. The whole point is bragging. It's a, it's not an issue of humility. I got really paranoid about, I'm coming off so full of myself. Everybody is. The admissions officers know that. It's like one of the few times in your life, maybe like a job interview or whatever, where you're sat down and say, hey, brag about yourself. And also, I think it's an important skill. You know, that's actually a lifelong skill that's worth developing, is your ability to promote yourself. I mean, especially for me, you know, I'm in the arts, and I'm sure many of you are in independent, going to want to go into independent, you know, like directed fields. If you don't take yourself seriously, no one's going to. So that's my thoughts, you know. I don't think I can summarize them, but Brown's pretty great. Be prepared to fight for ISD classes. Be prepared to have great, you know, to be self-directed, self-motivated, and yeah, that's what I would say. Okay, thank you.